pissed off, because how the fuck did it take us 17 years, 10 movies into this fucking universe, and then we finally decided to go ahead and make a fucking brilliant Wolverine movie? No, fuck you. That's why. I'm sorry. Mom, if you're watching this, turn this shit off. I'm pretty sure you already did. This movie is brilliant, and it has no fucking business being this fucking brilliant when both Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart are on their way the fuck out of here, okay? This is gonna be the last time that we see them as Wolverine and Professor X. It's like, being stuck in this fucking, troubled relationship, and you know what? You decide you're gonna go off, for a fucking weekend getaway, and you decide that, shit, we're actually perfect together if we just get beyond our fucking bullshit and baggage. But you know what? I actually feel like this is a great time for me to step away. All right, okay, thanks, bye. I know that I should be grateful, that I should be sitting here like, oh, thank God that they actually went out on a bang and they actually got to like stretch their fucking acting abilities out and actually show people what they're capable of with these characters. No. Fuck that. You need to stay the fuck here and do what Carrie Fisher did. You need to play these roles until you fucking die. Oh my God, so pissed off. I would rather you go ahead and made a shitty Logan movie so that way I'd be like, no, good for them. No, please, walk away from this dumpster fire. Les Mis 2? Are we doing that? Fucking Les Mis 2? I love it. Les Miserables, hélas. Sure, why not? I'm sorry, after I saw this movie in the midst of my weeping and crying and just being emotionally devastated and wrecked, I left up this really vague fucking Facebook post. Yeah, post this stupid shit up. I'm sorry. I really am sorry for worrying some of you guys. This movie is brilliant. It might actually be the greatest comic book superhero movie ever made. This movie is so good because, and I'm sorry that this might turn into an X-Men franchise rant, but I really feel like you can't address what is so good about Logan without addressing directly what is so fucking horrible about the other X-Men films. In my opinion, there are only really 3 good X-Men films. This one, and this one. The others, listen, some of them might be decent films, especially those First Class movies, but for me, the fact that they gave no regard really to casting choices, continuity, staying respectful to the fucking source material, yeah, that for me just completely ruined the experiences of those movies. Even though I acknowledge that they're actually legitimately decent and even good movies, as X-Men films, I feel like they failed incredibly. Logan, though, oh my God, for the first time ever, I felt myself relaxing. I unclenched my jaw. I could finally sit back in my seat and actually experience an X-Men film that actually felt like it was made by people who had read the comics instead of just simply skimming by on some Wikipedia articles. And my thing has always been, you don't have to give me a faithful adaptation, just a scene for scene reproduction of a comic book. But what you should be able to do is take that source material and actually elevate the material so that way I feel like I've seen some of these elements before, but it feels fresh, it feels new, but it also feels like it remains true to the books. Now, one of the biggest failings of the other X-Men films is the fact that they've had to pretty much be boxed in by that PG-13 rating. And the problem is that the world of the X-Men, it's not a PG-13 world. So everybody thinks that, Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, that it's just this Hogwarts for superhumans. Well, here's the thing though, the reason that Xavier's actually exists is because that in the X-Men world, these kids need a sanctuary. Because in that world, if you're lucky, then maybe you're just bullied a bit. But by and large, most of those kids are either being threatened physically, murdered, hunted down and exploited, or their powers are so extreme that they pose a threat to themselves and to other people. It is not a nice, kind world. It is a brutal, violent world. But we never saw that reflected back in the films. And I'm not, jazzed because I need violence in my superhero movies, but if your comic book has that kind of violence in it and you're adapting it to the screen, then that fucking movie should have that same kind of threat in it. And for those of you wondering how violent this movie actually is, and if you're like, maybe my kid will be able to handle it, far be it for me to tell you that you can't take your kid to an R-rated film, because I'm a product of being able to see R-rated films. I don't know if that helps the argument or not. However, yeah, if your kid is super squeamish, you might want to consider a sitter.
Holy fuck.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Another thing that I love about this movie, and ultimately what I was so overwhelmed by the entire time that I was watching this movie, is how we finally had an X-Men film that was talking about more than just beating up the new bad guy or saving the world. The great thing about Wolverine is that you get to view life through a much longer view lens. Most of us have about, 70 to 90 years on this earth. Logan, because of his healing factor, Yeah, he's had a lot more than that. How does that wear you down? What does that do for your outlook on life? Do you get to a point where you're just done with life and with helping out people? But then how do you ignore the more noble parts of yourself? How do you ignore those instincts? Logan is always so fascinating because he wants to be both a better man and a worse man than he is. If he were a better man, maybe he wouldn't be so gifted at killing. However, if he were a worse man, maybe he wouldn't mind the killing. We talk about wanting movies that discuss the human condition, but I want my comic book movies to discuss with me the superhuman condition. If we're talking about people that are beyond average, I don't want their movies to be average. I want this. I want something that strives for more and at the same time feels grounded and real and honest and authentic. I want to be devastated by the end of it. I want to be completely and totally crushed and feel like I've explored something beyond myself at the end of it. It sounds fucking nuts and crazy that we can get that out of a Logan movie, but I blame that on the mediocrity of what we've gotten before. I don't blame that whatsoever on the fact that it comes from comic book movies. I feel like we're just sort of slowly going through this truncated experience of comic books themselves. They went through this whole entire period where people constantly discounted them. We finally had a movie that reflected what we always saw back in the comic book medium, which was the potential for great, incredible art. This movie is great, incredible art. I'm gonna go calm the fuck down. You guys should really like, comment below, subscribe, and do whatever it is that you feel the need to do. And I'll talk to you guys later. Okay, love you, bye.